Last week, we ended the quantitative analysis packet, and we started the rhetorical analysis packet. And in the rhetorical analysis packet, you guys already did the reading discussions where you were given 3 articles and you were required to analyze 2 of those 3 articles. And most of you did well. It was a completion assignment, so everyone who submitted and met the minimum requirement received full credit for it. Moving forward, I want to discuss with you what a rhetorical analysis is. And what I did today is I created a little PowerPoint. I'm going to go briefly over this because all of these concepts are covered in details in the other videos that are posted on your course homepage. What is a rhetorical situation? The rhetorical situation refers to any set of circumstances that involves at least one person using some sort of communication to modify the perspective of at least one another person. Or in other words, in simple words, a rhetorical situation refers to any set of circumstances that lead to the creation of a piece. Or so anything that has an impact on the piece that we are reading or writing, that situation, those circumstances are referred to as a rhetorical situation. Next, we have the 4 elements. The 4 main elements of a rhetorical situation are, the first one is exigency, and we talked about exigency even in our previous assignment with the quantitative analysis. And here I want to kind of repeat or emphasize the fact that all the elements that you learned with the previous assignment are going to come forward with the upcoming and this current assignment. Okay, so we did talk about exigency then. Exigency is still going to play an important role in this assignment because without exigency, which means a situation that demands a prompt action, the need to write. What is that situation? What are those circumstances? Why did you find it important to write out a certain topic? What was the exigency? What was it need, that importance that this issue needs to be discussed? That is our exigency. And without exigency, we cannot have an argumentative piece of writing. Okay. Next is purpose. Purpose is, what are you trying to do? Are you trying to influence the reader's attitude and action? Are you trying to get them to do something? Your purpose and audience will always help you shape your argument or your paper. We are trying to mold their thinking, or at least get them to consider a situation that we are discussing in our piece. Okay. So with this paper, with the rhetorical analysis, your goal is to explain how the piece is actually put together. You are going to break it down. Next element is audience. Know who your audience is. Knowing your audience tells you what is important to let my audience know. Remember, filling in the gap. That's what knowing your audience helps with. Knowing your audience will help you understand how to approach the issue, what information to share and what to leave out. Audience will also dictate what appeal you will lean more on. How much background information you will provide, what kind of details and evidence you will share depends on your audience. The 4th element is context. And the definition here says the circumstances under which the writer and reader communicate. So all types of writing are influenced positively or negatively by context. Context are the circumstances, the social, the political, the religious, and other cultural influences that impact a piece. You already read those 2 articles out of the 3 I had assigned. You must have seen context play an important role in each one of those pieces. What era it was written in, what time period was it, what were the surroundings, how did the general public pursue that information? How did church react to it? When you're looking at a paper and you're talking about the rhetorical situation, you have to look at all of these four pieces. And when you're writing your own piece, then too, you have to look at this information. Try to understand what the exigency is. What is this person trying to do through this piece? Is he trying to persuade us? Is he trying to give us a solution to a problem? Or is he just trying to get his ideas through? So what kind of audience is my author reaching? Wish I could recall the title, but the one about birth control, what kind of audience is she reaching? Mostly people end up saying she's trying to reach other women, but no, have a deep look at it. She's not reaching just the women. Yes, she is definitely trying to reach the women, but she's trying to educate everyone. She's trying to educate and get everyone on the same page as her and make contraceptives available to everyone, men and women alike. Okay, mostly women, but at that time, again, social context comes into place. Women could not or were not allowed to do much beyond what their husbands or their male companions allowed them to. So that will explain who the audience is. That's what you look for. Next is the context. Now, we just talked about context, how women were controlled in a certain manner, or how women were not educated, or how women were not considered moral if they thought about contraceptives. Next is the rhetorical appeals. So we discussed a rhetorical situation. Quick recap, it is the circumstances, the environment, or the situation that shapes our writing. Simple words, a rhetorical situation refers to the set of circumstances that lead to the birth or development of a piece. And there are four elements: this exigency, the need to write, the purpose, why are we writing, what are we trying to do through this piece, the audience, who are we writing for, and why is that important? Because we want to reach them at their level and then educate them more, or then try to persuade them. Then the context, we talked about that. Now we get to the rhetorical appeals. The rhetorical appeals, basically, if you want to visualize these appeals, it is like a triangle. And a triangle means every argument will have all three of them, and they all three are always available in a piece. I have a whole video about what ethos, logos, and pathos are, what rhetorical situation is. Watch those videos, okay? So first we have ethos. Basically, ethos will establish the writer's credibility. Or is the author a credible expert? So basically, is the author an expert? Yes or no, first. Second, is the author using someone else who's an expert? Is the author's approach unbiased? Is your author looking at both sides of the argument? Is the argument well-rounded? Did they provide evidence? The author is an expert, but did she or did he cite someone else? Okay. Did they bring some other experts into their piece? Okay, that shows you their credibility. Next is logos. Logos is an appeal to reasoning, and all arguments are based in logos. So logos help shape the argument, while using numeric data for support adds to the logical appeal. Logos is not limited to numeric findings. Logos means logical reasoning. This logic is the way an argument is put together and the chain of reasoning where each connection, where each link connects with the other to form an argument. So how did your authors use logic in their articles is what she will discuss in this paper. Next is pathos. Pathos is an appeal to emotions, values, and beliefs, okay? It involves using language that will stir the feelings of the audience. Pathos is often associated with audiences' imaginative sympathies, their capacity to feel and see what the writers feel and see. Like those three pieces, One of the pieces is about pesticides, right? There are points where you will be like concerned, if not scared, that what the author is saying is true. So the imagery that she's using is actually stirring in the emotions, okay? So how does your author use imagery? How do they use language? How do they use different elements to stir those emotions, to draw those pictures for you, is what you will look for when you are looking for pathos, okay? I'm repeating: sympathetic, impersonal, angered, or detached. You will look for these elements in the piece that you will be analyzing for the upcoming assignment. We are in week 8, and this week we have the sources and claims quiz, and when you open the quiz, it will tell you what notes to read before you take the quiz. You know this drill by now. And then the rhetorical analysis rough draft is what's due this week. So now I'm going to stop sharing this page, and I will share with you your rhetorical analysis assignment. Okay, I am sharing the final draft prompt, because if you understand the final draft prompt, you basically will understand what the rough draft is going to be like. You know, the only difference usually is in the length. The rough draft for this essay has to be 3 to 4 pages, whereas the final draft has to be 4 to 5 pages. For this assignment, you are analyzing the pieces. What does analyze means? It means you're going to break down your article and look at it in little tiny pieces. And those pieces, we discussed those 4 elements: exigency, purpose, audience, and context. We discussed the 3 logical appeals: ethos, logos, and pathos. You're going to look at all these elements, how each one of them play a role in shaping that argument, okay? Now, what you are not doing is you are not evaluating this or these articles. What is the difference? In evaluation, you're discussing something and deciding whether a piece or something is good or bad. We are not doing that. You are not arguing whether Carson wrote a good essay. No, that could be another kind of assignment, but in a rhetorical analysis, you are analyzing how the author writes, not what he or she writes. You're not trying to agree or disagree with the piece. And lastly, you are not trying to summarize the work. Biggest error I see in these assignments are these 2. One, students start evaluating the article and start talking about how the piece is not valid, or they start bringing in their opinion. The other one, which is students start summarizing. They start restating piece by piece what happened. No, I don't want that. I want to know how, when you broke down this article into different elements, how and what did you see? How does the author write? How does the author try to convince you the point? Your goal is to describe how different pieces of the argument come together to get the point across. So when I'm writing a rhetorical analysis paper, I'm going to try to answer these questions. Now, it doesn't mean that each question will fit your article and you have to answer each one of these, but these will give you an idea of what can go in the paper. First one is, what is the purpose of this argument? What does it hope to achieve? So purpose, what is it trying to do? Is it trying to convince someone? Is it trying to get an action done? Or is it just trying to mold their thought process? So what motivated the writer to produce this piece? This is your exigency. Who is the intended audience? Who is the writer, and what is his or her profession, background, and expertise? How does it make the writer or creator seem trustworthy? Okay, how do you know that you can trust this author? That information needs to be added here. What facts, reasoning, and evidence are used in the argument? How are they presented? What are the context, social, political, historical, cultural, for this argument? Whose interest does it serve? Who gains or loses by it? How does the language or style of the argument work to persuade the audience? How does the author use ethos, logos, and pathos in this piece? What are the key emphasized terms or definitions in the article? This is another thing you will notice. Sometimes the author is repeating a certain terminology over and over. Why is this author doing that? Is there a purpose behind it? Look at those kind of things. Look at beyond what's obvious, okay? What is the counter argument? Does the author refute or the counter argument? What type of evidence does the author use? Is it reliable? What organization techniques did the author use and why? What is the tone of the piece? Now, again, I said that you don't have to answer each and every one of these questions. These questions are just to get you started as to what do I do in a rhetorical analysis, okay? Now, citing your sources, I provided you information on how to cite a piece that's from an anthology. If you are reading this article from your textbook, this is the citation style you will use. But if you are using the PDF files that I have provided, then this is what you will use, the digital files, PDF files. This is how they're cited. These are MLA style. For APA style, I've given you the links. These links will take you to how to cite a PDF file or how to cite a anthology, which is what your book is. Make sure, I'm repeating myself, make sure you watch the videos. What videos am I talking about? We have the rhetorical situation video here. I have the core of an argument. This video talks about ethos, logos, and pathos. And then within the module, not in the videos, I have this video. It says explanation of the rhetorical analysis essay assignment. This one actually talks about this assignment in details. These 3 videos will guide you through this assignment. There are others that help you how to develop your argumentative piece, but these 3 videos particularly talk about the rhetorical analysis assignment. And, I'm going to actually open one of these videos that's not by me. SPURS is basically a program UT Austin conducted in the year 2011. I'm not sure if they're still doing it, but these videos are so simple and easy to follow. You'll notice when you go to Blackboard, there are other videos by them. What is ethos, what is logos, what is pathos. They do a wonderful job, and I recommend you watch them. So let's watch this video together.
Again, my name is Eric. I'm the program coordinator for the SPURS program. Of course, you know Ashley.
Hi.
Former videos. We're back again to introduce to you the rhetorical analysis assignment. The rhetorical analysis, probably have already started thinking about it, talking about it a little bit. Of course, you have the prompt in front of you, and that's going to give you really sort of fuller information about what the expectations of the assignments are and some advice for meeting those expectations. So really the purpose of this video is to just sort of give you an overview about what we think is important to know about rhetorical analysis, what it is, what it does not do. I want to give you a few reminders to keep in mind as you're going through the writing process. And then I think we also want to spend a little bit of time at the end talking about what we think is the most difficult or most challenging part of writing this particular essay. So to start off with, Ashley, why don't you tell us how you introduce rhetorical analysis to your students, what you tell them that it is, what it does, its form or its function.
Great. Well, when I talk about rhetorical analysis with my class, I tell them that what they're doing in a rhetorical analysis is they're analyzing how a text, how an author in this text makes an argument to a certain audience. So I really need them to keep in mind that an author isn't just arguing in a vacuum. They're not just producing words and floating in space. There's an audience there. There's a very specific venue of publication. There's either a newspaper, a magazine, it might be a speech. There's many, many venues. The rhetorical analysis considers how this text is appearing, to which audience. And what kind of word choice, what kind of rhetorical appeals does the author use to be successful in that argument? How do they connect to that audience to make their argument? That's how I explain it.
So for you, your students, the first thing you're having them do is look for who is the audience, who is the intended audience of this essay.
Yes, absolutely. The most important thing we talk about in this unit is constantly audience, audience, audience.
And that's great advice. When I talk to my students about the rhetorical analysis, I really tell them that what you're involved here is a descriptive exercise, not an evaluative exercise. So the goal of rhetorical analysis is not to evaluate whether or not you're reading a good or bad argument, not even to say whether you agree or disagree with the author's position. Theoretically, a good rhetorical analyst should be able to describe what's going on in an essay.
As a reader of your paper, we should have no idea whether you agree or disagree with the position, because what's important, as Eric pointed out, is that description of how that argument is being made to an audience.
Great. So just to recap, the rhetorical analysis is not an evaluation. You're not judging whether or not this was an efficient or inefficient argument, a good or bad argument, a moral or immoral argument. You're not even judging whether or not you agree with it or disagree with it. What you're doing is talking about the argument's content and the argument's structure. You're explaining what does it say, and then you're explaining how does it say it. How are those things interrelated? Okay.
And what you'll be using to do that is rhetorical appeals, which is what the bulk of this unit will talk about. Things like ethos and pathos and logos.
Yes. Let's be clear here up front, even though there are other videos and other assignments on other days that deal with the appeals, let's be clear up front that every argument contains all those appeals. So every argument is going to have a little bit of the appeal to ethos, the appeal to pathos, the appeal to logos. You'll learn what those appeals are as we go through the next couple of weeks. But if you'll take our word for it, or at least this is our argument, I guess different people can disagree, we're arguing that in every argument you'll have a little bit of all three of these appeals, okay? So when you do the analysis, you're going to have to talk about all three of these appeals. The trick, and I think this gets us to what is maybe the most challenging part of writing this essay, the trick is knowing how to prioritize what you're discussing in that essay. Because not every essay uses all these appeals equally. Right? Not all these essays use language in the same way or in the same way throughout the entire essay, right? Sometimes authors or writers or speakers or filmmakers or whoever it is, they rely on, for one section, this kind of rhetorical style, and on this section, this kind of rhetorical style, or in this, to make this point, they use ethos, but to make this point, they use pathos, right? So you need to prioritize which of these appeals, which of these rhetorical strategies is most significant, most important, most prevalent, in fact, right? Any advice on how to do that?
Well, as you'll see in the next few videos on ethos, pathos, and logos, you'll learn a little bit more about how to notice these different strategies coming into play. I think my best advice in terms of prioritizing, again, comes back to audience, is to think about who is this written for? Who is the author trying to engage with? What beliefs and ideologies do these people have? And how do you notice the author reaching out to meet those? Are they, using a lot of emotions to connect with an audience they know is going to be highly emotional on a topic? Or are they minimizing the use of emotions because they're in a forum that is more concerned with logical reasoning, and emotions might not seem as appropriate? I think, again, the audience and those beliefs and ideologies that you've learned about already will help you sort of guide your view of how this argument is functioning.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. So ultimately what we're asking you to do with the rhetorical analysis is to describe the relationship between the three appeals and between the language that's used in those appeals, okay? So really you're describing, if I know who the audience is, then I have a pretty good guess, or I can speculate with some confidence about the ratio of appeals. I know why this appeal is most prevalent, and I know why this one is least prevalent, and I can describe why that relationship exists, why those ratios are the way they are. So that description is really what we're urging you to do here with this assignment, okay?
Yeah, and I think that as you get more in the process of drafting and you start producing thesis statements, you'll notice that your thesis really encapsulates what Eric just described, kind of pointing out the author is using these appeals to make their argument on this audience because of these beliefs and ideologies underpinning the audience.
Absolutely. So if you're looking at the prompt in front of you, you see that we're asking you to go through the assignment packet, the reading packet, which you should have read all the articles in it by now. And you're going to select one, and that one is going to be the focus of your entire essay. So what you're doing is basically deconstructing or reverse engineering or dissecting, the kind of the way you dissect a frog, how the argument's put together. Content and structure. What does it say? How does it say it? Okay, so you'll pick one from the packet, and you will write the analysis on that one
So
article.
that's how this is a very different assignment from your first essay, when you're really focusing on this single text and how this text is operating. Who is the author? What's their background? What kind of argument are they making? What is the situation they're arguing in? And again, it's so important. Who is that audience? What do they believe? What are their ideologies? And how does all of that work together?
I'm not asking you to take a position. I'm basically just asking you to do a rhetorical analysis, breaking down and deconstructing the essay, like he said, or dissecting it, and then talking about how those appeals and how those rhetorical elements were used in that piece to convince the audience, okay? And read the sample essay that's posted on Blackboard. It will definitely help you understand how to shape your argument, okay? The videos they mention in there, those videos are on your Blackboard homepage. Definitely look at them. They're easy to follow. Read your assignment prompt. You are writing a 3 to 4 page rough draft and a 4 to 5 pages final draft, okay?